So, hello ladies and gentlemen. This morning, I will be discussing Roland Barthes' hypothesis on authorship and how Paul Auster toys with these concepts in his renowned metafictional novel, City of Glass. To start, I believe that in order to truly understand City of Glass, we firstly have to understand the concept of metafiction. It is defined as a fiction in which the author self-consciously alludes to the artificiality or literariness of a work by parodying or departing from novelistic conventions and traditional narrative techniques. Despite this, I don't think we can ever conclusively define metafiction, because it is different to every person and every author. Remembering this, we can now look at City of Glass. Written in 1985, the novel begins with an author called Daniel Quinn, who coincidentally has the same initials as Don Quixote. His pen name is William Wilson, which is coincidentally the name of a short story about loss of identity written by Edgar Allan Poe. And we first encounter him alone in a dark room where he receives an unconventional phone call inquiring about a detective named Paul Auster, which is coincidentally the name of the author of the novel. He dissimulates his true identity and takes the one of the detective, and as the work develops, he slowly descends into a mental disintegration and reaches his personal nadir at the culmination of the novel, where the story comes full circle and he is once again all alone in a dark room. The complexity of the human mind is also brought forth in Roland Barthes' work. This common thought process could be attributed to the fact that both authors were alive for the entirety of the Vietnam War and everything that came with it. Although things like the hippie movement and flower power originated in the United States, the overwhelming feeling of fraternity with everyone on Earth, as well as disappointment with the war, resonated across the ocean to Europe. As a result, people lost their sense of national identity, and along with that came the desire to question everything. This concept is professionally displayed in Death of the Author, which commences with Roland Barthes discussing a short story by Sarrazin Balzac of a castrato disguised as a woman, who states he is the epitome of femininity, to which Barthes rhetorically questions, "Who is speaking thus?" To which he responds, "We shall never know." For the good reason that writing is the destruction of every voice, of every point of origin. Writing is that neutral, composite, oblique space where our subject slips away, the negative where all identity is lost, starting with the very identity of the body writing. This is considered by many to be his central argument or thesis. Barthes explicitly acknowledges the concept of authorship in possibly his most eminent line. To give a text an author is to impose a limit on that text. Which, with this, in effect, he means that an author is detrimental to a text, not beneficial. This can be attributed to the fact that when a person reads a novel, knowledge of the author's identity is what compels us to read it or not to read it. For example, if I had written a masterpiece novel, like James Joyce's Ulysses, Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis, or even City of Glass, chances are it would not be as renowned as the originals. Auster expertly toys with this concept by creating seemingly a never-ending nexus of authors. As I stated before, the novel begins with the introduction of Daniel Quinn, whose pen name is William Wilson, and whose fictional name is Max Work. Daniel Quinn shares initials with Don Quixote, who shares the theme of identity with William Wilson, written by Edgar Allan Poe, who shares his birthday with Daniel Quinn. As well as this triad, there is also the added layers of the entity Paul Auster. He is the author of the novel as a whole. The detective whom the Stillmans are looking for when they misdial Quinn is also called Paul Auster. Quinn then proceeds to become Paul Auster the detective. While he is impersonating Auster, he meets the real Paul Auster, who is the fictional Paul Auster the author. And then to top it all off, the novel ends with an epilogue by an unnamed author who states he is the author of the novel and he knows the fictitious author Auster. He continues to say that, as for Auster, I am convinced he acted badly throughout. Yet, on the front cover is Auster's name, insinuating that it was he who wrote the book. Clearly, Auster is successful in removing the ocean of authorship in this novel through the masterful spinning of a web of confusion. Barthes famously ends his essay with the line, "We know that to give writing its future, it is necessary to overthrow the myth. Birth of the reader must be at the cost of the death of the author." He doubtlessly intended this to mean that only through the anonymity of the author can we as readers fully appreciate the text for its true value. Also importantly, he capitalizes the A in author, which causes it to transcend from being a writer into becoming an actual entity. Once again, Auster attempts to derail the postulation by providing us with the metaphysical demise and genesis of authors. The major death in the novel is Quinn's gradual mental deterioration, which is sparked by the Stillman case and his encounter with Paul Auster's family. Since Quinn is an author by profession, this can be considered as a dig towards Barthes' aforementioned quote. However, at the end of the novel comes the sudden rebirth of an author, when the unnamed author returns from his trip to Africa. This stance fuels us to conclude that both texts were incredibly revolutionary for their time, and still hold aspects of unconventionality. This notion is further elucidated through the fact that even today, these works hold us in awe of the human psyche. Now, I'd just like to end by leaving you all with this quote. So, as soon as a fact is narrated, no longer with a view to acting directly on reality, but intransitively, that is to say, finally outside of any function, other than that of the very practice of the symbol itself, the disconnection occurs. The voice loses its origin, the author enters into his own death, writing begins. Thank you very much.